Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through stacks of info to pull out the key nuggets for you. And today, we're diving into something pretty powerful, daring greatly. It's a concept that's really changed things for a lot of people, how they live, parent, lead. This dive it's inspired by Brené Brown's, really influential book, but also her podcasts, interviews, all digging into embracing vulnerability, our mission. Unpack what daring greatly actually means and show how this, seemingly simple idea is really quite radical. So let's get into it. This word vulnerability, it often gets a bad rap, doesn't it? Like it means weakness. But what if that's wrong?
Well, what's so fascinating, and Brené Brown's research really backs this up, like 2 decades of data. She defines vulnerability not as weakness at all. It's uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Basically, her point is to feel is to be vulnerable. It's the core of all our emotions, not just the hard ones like fear or shame, but, love, joy, belonging. And her research, over 11,000 pieces of data, it consistently shows you can't have courage without vulnerability. It's actually our best measure of courage.
Wow. Okay. That really flies in the face of how many of us think about it. But you hear vulnerability, and sometimes you think oversharing, like telling everyone everything. How does she square that with, keeping things private?
That's a really crucial distinction. Vulnerability isn't just like word vomit. It absolutely requires boundaries, strong ones, actually. It's about sharing your story, yes, but only with people who've, as she puts it, earned the right to hear it. That's key. It's about connection, not just broadcasting.
Got it. And the title itself, Daring Greatly, that comes from somewhere specific, right? Theodore Roosevelt.
Exactly. His Man in the Arena speech. It's such a powerful image. It's not about the critic pointing fingers from the sidelines. It's about the person in the arena covered in dust and sweat who, even if they fail while daring greatly.
Right. So Brown says vulnerability is basically being that person, stepping into the arena. It's about showing up courageously, whether you win or lose.
Precisely. And thinking bigger picture, this just fundamentally shifts things, doesn't it? Away from worrying about what others think, that external judgment, and towards your own internal bravery. Like, am I showing up? She talks a lot in her early work about FFT's first FING times, Those moments you try something totally new, that's peak vulnerability.
Yeah. That makes sense. Learning something new is always uncomfortable.
Totally. And that brings up a question for you listening. Are you willing to actually normalize that discomfort? Because Brown really insists that learning to stand steady when you feel unsure, that's the foundation of courage. You have to kind of embrace the suck, That's where the growth happens.
Okay, before we get into like the how-to, there's another really important distinction the sources make. Shame versus guilt. They sound similar, but they're really different, aren't they?
Hugely different. And this is critical. Shame is that really destructive feeling of I am bad. It makes you want to hide, disconnect. It corrodes who you are. Guilt, though. Guilt is I did something bad. That can actually be productive. It can motivate you to apologize, make amends, change your behavior. It's about accountability.
So shame is about self-worth, guilt is about actions.
Exactly. And she finds that shame, it heals best between people. Meaning, if you're feeling shame, the antidote is actually reaching out, sharing it with someone you trust. And you see it manifest differently too, right? Like women might feel shame around body image or not being the perfect mom, whereas men often link it to perceived failure or appearing weak. Knowing that helps us navigate it.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what does this mean for, your life? How does daring greatly actually change things day to day?
Well, it's really a path to living more authentically. Deeper connections, everywhere. Think relationships. Brown talks about her own marriage, how resolving conflict requires being vulnerable, being shame-free about messing up, or parenting, letting go of trying to be perfect and just connecting with your kids, honestly. And leadership, there was that big Google study, right? 5 years. Found the absolute key factor for their best teams wasn't skills or structure, it was psychological safety, which is basically a mix of vulnerability and trust. Brown puts it so simply. You cannot unlock performance if you can't unlock people.
Right. Makes sense. If people feel safe to mess up or suggest a half-baked idea, that's where innovation happens.
Totally.
So practically, it sounds like, embrace discomfort, own your stories, but with those boundaries we talked about.
Right.
Practice empathy. Really listen. Tell people you're not alone. And maybe let go of perfectionism and that whole exhaustion is a status symbol thing.
Yes, exactly. It's not about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So daring greatly isn't like a one-and-done thing. It's ongoing, a practice. Choosing courage over comfort again and again. Recognizing that real strength isn't about building walls, but about being willing to be seen, truly seen.
Which leaves us with maybe a final thought for you to chew on. How might embracing that discomfort of vulnerability, letting yourself be truly seen, how might that not just transform your own life, but also ripple outwards? How could it foster more courage, more compassion, more connection in your relationships, your family, maybe even your workplace?
We all know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
That urge to really step up, get into the arena of life. Could be work, relationships, maybe a creative thing you've been putting off.
Yeah, definitely.
But then something stops you. And it's usually not just, a simple fear of failing. Something else is going on.
Right.
So what is that really powerful thing holding us back?
Well, in this deep dive, we're going to try and uncover it. It's often this primal terror, shame. We'll look at what it is, how it freezes us, and this emotional armor we build up, and hopefully figure out how we can maybe start setting that armor down.
Exactly. And it's so timely because we hear a lot about vulnerability now, how it's a strength, how it's courage.
Yeah.
But you can't really get to that courage without walking through vulnerability. And, you can't really talk honestly about vulnerability without talking about shame. They're just completely linked. Okay, so let's get specific then. Let's define shame. The source material describes it as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging.
That unworthy part is key.
It really is, because it makes shame fundamentally different from guilt. Guilt says, I did something bad. Maybe you snapped at someone or missed a deadline.
Right, an action.
But shame says, I am bad. It's about who you are, not just what you did. That's a huge difference in how it feels inside.
It is huge.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating, maybe even surprising, is that guilt can actually be constructive sometimes.
How so?
Well, if you feel guilty, you're often motivated to fix it, right?
Yeah.
Apologize, make amends, learn not to do it again. It pushes towards change.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
But shame, it's just destructive. It kind of corrodes the very part of us that believes we can change. It tells you the flaw is permanent. And there's a neurobiological thing too. Shame often triggers that primal fight, flight, or freeze response. Shuts down clear thinking. And historically, it's been used as a tool of social control. That deep fear of being kicked out of the tribe, of not belonging.
That makes sense. That fear of being cast out feels incredibly primal.
It really is.
So to avoid that feeling, that intense pain of feeling unworthy,
Right.
we build walls, this emotional armor.
Yeah.
Perfectionism is a big one, isn't it? It's described as this 20-ton shield we carry around.
Heavy shield.
Totally.
Right.
We think it's protecting us, but the source says it's actually the thing that's really preventing us from being seen. Because it's not about doing good work. It's about desperately trying to earn approval, avoid judgment.
Absolutely. You're performing, not connecting.
Yeah.
And it's not the only armor. There's also numbing, right?
Oh, yeah. Mindless scrolling, binge watching, just checking out.
Exactly. But the catch, and this is important, is that you cannot selectively numb emotion. If you numb the bad stuff, the fear, the shame, the discomfort, you inevitably numb the good stuff too.
Like joy, connection.
All of it. Joy, connection, creativity, gratitude, it all gets dulled down.
That's a steep price. And then there's that other one you mentioned before we started, foreboding joy. That one really gets me.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, isn't it? It's like you have this moment of real happiness, maybe you get great news, or just feel intense love.
And your first thought is?
Oh no, something bad is definitely about to happen to balance this out.
Yeah.
Or when is the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
You're bracing for tragedy right in the middle of joy.
Trying to control the uncontrollable, essentially. Protect yourself from being blindsided by pain.
Precisely. And all this armor perfectionism, numbing, foreboding joy, it operates on what the research calls a false economy.
Meaning?
It promises safety, promises control, but what it actually delivers is isolation, disconnection, stagnation. Think about it in a team setting.
Okay.
If everyone's wearing armor, you get this artificial harmony. It looks smooth on the surface, but nobody's saying what they really think. Difficult conversations get shut down.
No real feedback.
No real feedback. Trust erodes. And forget about innovation. Innovation dies in that kind of environment because people are too afraid to be vulnerable, to suggest something risky, or to admit they don't know something.
So bringing this home,
Yeah.
what does this mean for you listening, especially if you're in any kind of leadership role at work, home, anywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Well, armored leaders, the ones stuck in blame or covering up mistakes, they crush creativity. People won't take risks.
They shut down.
Exactly. But daring leaders, they actually model vulnerability. They own their mistakes. They ask for help. And that creates psychological safety.
Which is huge.
It makes it okay for others to be real, to mess up, to ask for help. That kind of environment, that's where the good stuff happens. It becomes the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. It really shifts the whole dynamic.
It really does. Which, of course, leads to the big question, okay, how? How do we actually start taking off this heavy armor? How do we cultivate that courage?
Yeah, the practical side.
The key seems to be building shame resilience. Not about never feeling shame again. That's probably unrealistic for most of us.
Right.
It's about learning how to recognize it, move through it, and not let it define you when it shows up. And the path through it, the universal antidote, is empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah. Shame fundamentally relies on secrecy, silence, and judgment. But, as the research powerfully states, shame cannot survive being spoken. It cannot survive empathy.
So talking about it helps.
Talking about it with someone who can meet you with empathy, yes. Someone who listens and says essentially, me too, or I get it, or you're not alone. That connection directly fights the isolation that shame breeds. It disarms it.
Wow. So connection is the counterforce.
Absolutely.
So I guess the core takeaway here isn't about becoming fearless or never feeling shame. That's not the goal. True courage is more about, well, the willingness to show up, to be seen, even when you can't control what happens next. When you're feeling uncertain or exposed, it's a practice, right? Not a one-time thing.
A continuous practice, definitely. Engaging with life, imperfections and all.
Okay, so maybe a final thought for everyone listening. What's one small act of vulnerability you could maybe practice today? Something to start building that resilience, maybe foster a slightly more authentic connection, either with yourself or someone else.
Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really foundational material you sent over.
Yeah, really interesting stuff.
Today we're diving deep into Dr. Brené Brown's insights, specifically from her book, Daring Greatly. And we're really focusing on, well, what feels like the core framework in there for understanding shame and resilience.
Right. Chapter 3 sets that stage.
Exactly. And it all kind of hinges on that Theodore Roosevelt metaphor, doesn't it? The person in the arena.
Oh, absolutely. Whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, that one.
Yeah. And for Brown, that arena, it's basically anywhere we risk being truly seen, you know?
Like showing up for real?
Right. A new relationship, a creative project, stepping up at work, any of that stuff.
And what's so fascinating, and you see this right away in the sources, is the paradox around vulnerability.
How we see it as weakness.
Exactly. We instinctively feel like it's weakness. But Brown reframes it, actually, quite neutrally, as just uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. That feeling when you step in the ring, basically, and you can't control what happens.
Okay.
But here's the twist. She argues it's the most accurate measurement of courage, and even the birthplace of things like love, joy, creativity.
Wow. Okay. So the opposite of weakness.
Pretty much, which leads to this like fundamental struggle, right? We want to avoid pain, especially shame, so we armor up.
Makes sense instinctively.
Yeah, but the irony is that very armor, the thing we use to avoid feeling vulnerable to shame, it actually stops us from developing the skills we need to handle shame when it inevitably shows up.
So it's a self-defeating cycle. Keep shame powerful.
You got it.
Okay, let's unpack shame itself then. This master emotion, as she calls it.
Right.
The definition provided is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Pretty heavy.
It is. And universal, too. It taps into that deep fear of disconnection, you know, that worry that something about us just isn't enough. Makes us unlovable.
So how is that different from, say, guilt or embarrassment? People mix those up.
Yeah, and the distinction is crucial. Brown really nails this down. Guilt is about behavior.
Like, I did something bad.
Exactly. I did something bad. And guilt, well, it can actually be helpful. It can motivate us to change, to make amends.
Okay.
Shame, though, is different. It's self-focused. It's not, I did something bad. It's, I am bad.
Oh, wow. That's a huge difference.
Huge. And that's why shame is so destructive. It correlates with things like addiction, depression, aggression. It eats away at you.
And humiliation or embarrassment, where do they fit?
Humiliation is more about feeling you were unjustly put down or treated unfairly. And embarrassment, well, that's usually more fleeting, situational, maybe even a bit funny later. Less about your core worth.
Got it. That really clarifies things. So shame thrives on feeling flawed and unworthy. What kind of environment lets it grow?
The petri dish, as Brown calls it.
Yeah.
Secrecy, silence, and judgment. That's the stuff shame feeds on.
Makes sense. If you hide it, it festers.
Right. Those internal shame gremlins, those voices telling you you're not good enough, they get louder in the silence. They amplify that feeling of being isolated, cut off.
It sounds like a trap. But there's a way out described, right? Shame resilience theory or SOT.
I see. Yes, absolutely. And the goal isn't to become shame-proof. That's impossible. We're human.
Right.
The goal is to become shame-resilient, to be able to move through shame without losing yourself, keeping your sense of authenticity and worthiness intact.
Okay, so how do we do that? What are the pillars?
There are 4 core elements. First is recognizing shame, learning its physical signs.
Like that hot flush or feeling small.
Exactly. That warm wash, a sinking feeling, wanting to disappear. And then, crucially, naming it. Okay, this feeling. This is shame, not just anger or defensiveness.
Got it. Recognize it.
What's second? Second is practicing critical awareness. This is about questioning those internal gremlin messages.
Like, hold on, is that really true about me?
Precisely. And also looking outwards, recognizing the societal messages, the unrealistic expectations, the cultural stuff that fuels shame for so many people.
Okay, makes sense. Context matters.
Third is reaching out, breaking the secrecy and silence we just talked about.
So talking about it.
Yes, but sharing your story with someone who's earned the right to hear it, a trusted person, someone you know will meet you with compassion.
Not just anyone.
Definitely not. This active connection, it directly fights shame's need for isolation.
Okay, and the last one.
The fourth, and honestly maybe the most powerful, speaking shame and harnessing the power of empathy.
Empathy.
Yes. Brown's research found empathy is the antidote to shame. It's like kryptonite for shame.
How does that work in practice?
Well, when you can actually speak your shame, maybe say to that trusted person, oh, I'm really in a shame spiral right now. I just need you to listen. And they respond with empathy.
I get it. Or, I felt that way too.
Exactly. Me too. That shared human experience.
Yeah.
Shame just, it can't survive in that environment. It dissolves. Empathy normalizes it, validates you, and reconnects you.
Wow. Empathy is the antidote. That's powerful.
It really is.
And this whole journey, building this resilience, it's not just about feeling better personally, is it? The sources show it changes everything.
Oh, totally. How we live, how we love, how we parent, how we lead. Think about the workplace example.
Right. The fear of shame leads to disengagement.
Yeah. Brown puts it starkly. No vulnerability equals no creativity. No tolerance for failure equals no innovation. If people are afraid to mess up or look foolish, they won't take risks.
Which kills innovation.
Completely. So connecting it all, daring greatly isn't really about avoiding pain. It's about finding the courage to navigate it.
To show up anyway.
To show up, be seen, even when you can't guarantee the outcome. Shame resilience is the practice that lets us do that.
So the big takeaway for everyone listening, it seems to be that daring greatly, embracing this vulnerability and empathy practice, that's actually how we truly live.
That's the core message, yeah.
Which leaves us with a question, maybe. What's one small way, maybe even today, you could practice a tiny act of vulnerability? How could you step just a little bit more into your own arena?
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we've really dug into these sources on Dr. Brené Brown's work. We're looking at shame, vulnerability.
Yeah, really powerful stuff.
And our goal, really, is to see how understanding these, well, big emotions can help you shift from fear towards more authenticity.
Yeah.
Towards what she calls a wholehearted life.
And what's so interesting in the sources is how Dr. Brown moves shame out of the shadows. You know, she defines it as that intensely painful fear of disconnection.
Disconnection.
Right. And that fear, it stops us. It's the main hurdle to courage, compassion, real connection, and maybe counterintuitively, embracing vulnerability is the way through.
Okay, so let's nail down that distinction you mentioned, shame versus guilt, because the sources stress how much we confuse them.
Oh, constantly. And it matters hugely.
Why is it so critical?
Well, think about it. When you feel bad, are you telling yourself, I am bad?
Yeah.
That's shame. It's about you, your core self, and it shuts you down.
Right, paralyzing.
Exactly. Or are you thinking, I did something bad? That's guilt. Guilt focuses on the action, the behavior.
Which means you can actually do something about it.
Precisely. It's adaptive. It pushes you to apologize, maybe make things right, learn, change. Shame just says, you're flawed, end of story. It offers no way out.
Okay, that distinction is huge. And then there's vulnerability. My sources really highlighted this as Well, almost revolutionary. We're taught it's weakness. Right.
Totally. We see it as something to hide. But Dr. Brown's research, it flips that completely. She defines it as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure.
Uncertainty, risk, emotional exposure. That sounds like, well, like life.
Exactly. It's not optional. It's just part of being human.
Yeah.
The source is called the birthplace of courage.
The birthplace of courage. Wow.
Yeah. It's about having the guts to show up even when you don't know the outcome. But because that feels so risky, we build defenses.
Ah, the vulnerability armor.
That's it. Like perfectionism, she calls that a heavy 20-ton shield.
20 tons. That sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
And while you think it's protecting you from shame, it's also walling you off from genuine connection.
Okay, so if we're trying to take off that armor, how do we build resilience? The sources map out this shame resilience theory, or SRT, 4 pillars.
Yeah, 4 key steps. It's a framework designed to shift us away from feeling isolated and powerless towards connection and feeling empowered.
So what's the first one?
Pillar 1 is recognizing shame and its triggers. Just noticing it.
Yeah.
Tuning into those physical signs. Maybe your face feels hot, your thoughts race.
That pit in your stomach feeling.
Right. And then just naming it. Simply saying, okay, this feeling, this is shame.
So identifying it. Okay. Pillar 2.
Practicing critical awareness. This is about stepping back and questioning the messages or expectations that trigger the shame, especially those unrealistic societal ones. Ask yourself, is this expectation even realistic? Who actually benefits from me believing this?
Kind of deconstructing it. Makes sense. Third.
Reaching out. This is so important. Share what you're feeling, your story, and this is key with someone who's earned the right to hear it. Someone you trust who responds with empathy.
Because shame hates being spoken.
Exactly. It thrives in secrecy. Empathy is like kryptonite to shame. And pillar 4.
Speaking shame, this builds on reaching out. It means finding the words for your experience and clearly asking for what you actually need from that trusted person.
Yeah, not just venting, but saying something specific like, look, I just need you to listen right now, or can you just remind me I'm not alone in this?
That takes courage, too, asking for what you need. So those are the pillars. The sources also mention specific antidotes.
Yes, 2 huge ones that run through everything. Empathy, which we just touched on, and self-compassion.
Okay, empathy first. How does that work as an antidote?
The sources describe empathy as creating a hostile environment for shame. When someone truly connects with your feeling, understands it without judgment, the shame starts to dissolve. You realize you're not isolated in that feeling.
Connection breaks the isolation, and self-compassion.
That's about turning that empathy inward. Treating yourself with the same kindness, the same care and understanding you'd offer to a good friend who is struggling.
Instead of beating yourself up.
Right, it's that internal voice saying, okay, I messed up, that was a mistake, and I'm still worthy of love and belonging. It separates your actions from your fundamental worth.
And you can see how these ideas aren't just like personal self-help. They apply broadly, right? Parenting, leadership.
Absolutely. In parenting, it's the difference between saying, you did a bad thing, guilt behavior, versus you are bad, shame character. Huge difference for a child's development.
Separating the deed from the doer.
Exactly. And in the workplace, a leader who embraces vulnerability creates a culture where people feel safe to innovate, to try things, maybe even to fail without fearing humiliation or retribution. That's where creativity comes from.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows that daring greatly, as she puts it, it's not about being perfect or fearless.
Not at all. It's about recognizing you are already worthy right now. You don't have to earn it through perfection or performance.
It's about claiming that worthiness.
Precisely. And maybe that leaves you with a question to ponder. What piece of armor, maybe that heavy perfectionism shield or something else, might you be ready to set down today? Just to step a little more fully into your own story and will dare greatly yourself.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really diving into Brené Brown's work, Daring Greatly. We're pulling out some core ideas that honestly kind of redefine strength and show why maybe embracing vulnerability, that's actually the real measure of courage. Okay, so let's revisit vulnerability for a second, because Brown's definition, it's pretty precise, and I think sometimes people miss this. It's not about weakness. It's defined as that state of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. You know, like stepping into what Roosevelt called the arena, really daring to, well, Show up and let yourself be seen.
Yeah, it really does flip the script on, what society usually tells us courage is supposed to look like, doesn't it? True courage isn't like the absence of fear or risk. It's the willingness to engage anyway, to lean into life despite those things. And if vulnerability really is the most accurate measure, well, then cultivating it. That becomes the main way to build personal strength.
That sounds powerful, definitely. But I think for a lot of people, that word vulnerability, it still brings up images of, I don't know, weakness, or maybe just oversharing. How do we separate this courageous kind from just being unprotected, or maybe even someone using it manipulatively?
That's a great point.
The source material is pretty clear. It's a conscious choice, right? Being authentic on purpose, not just letting everything hang out.
Exactly. It's deliberate.
And here's where it gets tricky, I think. We all crave that deep connection, but connection needs vulnerability. Yet we're often terrified of the judgment or, the potential hurt that comes with it.
Exactly. And that paradox, it often leads us to put up these walls, this sort of emotional armor, which ironically just leads to more isolation. It's a really stark thing when you think about it. We've got more digital connections than ever, maybe, but studies keep showing loneliness is actually at record highs. Yeah, it points to this huge societal cost of just, surface level stuff. We opt for connection without the brave step, without the emotional exposure, and it leaves us just, collectively starved for real belonging. And beyond the personal side, vulnerability is also indispensable for creativity, for innovation in any group. If people don't feel safe enough to share a new idea or maybe admit they made a mistake, then progress just kind of stalls.
So it's not just this abstract emotional thing. It's actually foundational for practical, tangible progress in teams, in organizations. That feels like a really crucial distinction.
Absolutely.
And daring greatly really pushes this beyond just our personal relationships, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure.
It changes how we live, love, even how we parent and lead. When we talk about wholehearted living, it's about embracing that imperfection, shifting from thinking I'm never enough to actually believing I am enough. It's really about cultivating that deep sense of worthiness, regardless of what's happening outside.
And that shift is it's foundational. In relationships, loving bravely means, allowing yourself to be seen, perceived flaws and everything. That's how you build deep trust. As parents, modeling it means admitting when you mess up, expressing your own emotions. That teaches kids resilience, emotional intelligence. They can break those generational cycles of just stuffing emotions down.
And for leaders, it's about creating psychological safety. That's the term, right? That shared belief that the team is safe enough for people to take interpersonal risks.
Exactly. Critical.
So when leaders are vulnerable, maybe admitting they don't know something or asking for help, they foster an environment where their teams feel safe to innovate, take risks, learn from mistakes without fearing punishment.
Yeah, imagine a CEO actually admitting a significant mistake to the whole team.
That'd be huge.
Right. That single act just signals safety and openness immediately. It's not just some soft skill. It's actually a strategic imperative for any organization trying to navigate today's world. But okay, embracing vulnerability means we have to confront its main opponent, shame. And Brown makes this really powerful distinction, doesn't she? Shame isn't guilt.
Right. Guilt is, I did something bad.
Exactly. But shame whispers, I am bad. It's that really intensely painful feeling that we're fundamentally flawed, unworthy of connection, and it thrives in secrecy, in judgment. It drives disconnection, which makes you wonder, if shame stops us from talking openly, how do we even begin to address our deepest societal problems?
Well, that's where empathy comes in, isn't it? That's positioned as the antidote to shame.
The antidote.
It's about connecting with someone else's feelings, holding back judgment, recognizing their emotion, and just communicating that you understand. And importantly, applying it to ourselves too. Self-compassion, treating yourself with kindness, especially when you feel that shame creeping in. That's vital for building what she calls shame resilience.
Yeah, there's a really powerful feedback loop there, Vulnerability can lead to connection. Shame drives disconnection. And empathy is the bridge, the antidote. So when we risk being vulnerable and we're actually met with empathy, maybe from others, maybe from ourselves, it reinforces our ability, our capacity to be vulnerable again later.
Okay.
Which means even small steps like micro vulnerabilities can gradually chip away at those long-held patterns of shame and build really robust connection.
So wrapping this up.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for you listening right now? I think this deep dive really shows us that vulnerability isn't some optional extra. It's fundamental to being human. The real choice isn't if we're vulnerable, but whether we'll consciously engage with it. It's like a continuous journey, isn't it? Stepping into your own arena, practicing that courage every single day.
And if we zoom out, think bigger picture for a moment. This whole framework, it profoundly redefines what success even means. It shifts the focus away from just external stuff like achievements or status towards the depth of your connections, the sheer bravery of living an authentic life. And that kind of reorientation, it doesn't just transform your own life. It helps foster a more empathetic, more resilient society overall. Which leaves us with a pretty big question, I think. What does true success really look like if we measure it by the courage to be seen, imperfections and all?
That's all for this episode of the Deep Dive Cast. Thanks for joining us. We hope you gained some valuable insights. Be sure to tune in next time for another deep dive into the world's best ideas. Until then, keep learning and growing.